As I said earlier in this lesson, everything in your case file is fair game for a subsequent deposition. After finishing your expert report, you should consider cleaning up your case file. There may be irrelevant pieces of paper in that file. You can discard them if they have nothing to do with the analyses and opinions you express in your expert report. For example, you probably no longer need menus from restaurants, or directions to meetings, or even empty pieces of paper from bored or boring meetings at which you learned no useful information. During a deposition, opposing counsel attempts to discredit you in various ways. Irrelevant notes and unnecessary pieces of paper in your case file can provide the opposing attorney a means, perhaps a silly means, but nonetheless a means to do this. Irrelevant papers can take away from your professionalism. After all, why would a consummate professional like you have such a meaningless piece of paper inside your case file? Pieces of paper that contain earlier thinking or avenues of exploration can also provide an opportunity for opposing counsel to ask questions about your own certainty and perhaps undermine your own believability in the final opinions that you did express in the report. Worse still, discarded considerations on your part will provide the opposing counsel with completely new areas to explore as legitimate alternatives that the opposing side can say you should have further considered. At the very least, you will be forced to defend an entire avenue of questioning that you may not be prepared to do. It may even be true that you had uncertainties about whether that avenue should have been completely discarded. On balance, you may have decided to do just that, since that is the way a pragmatic analyst sometimes does his work. It may not be the way a juror or an attorney might believe you should have done yours. Why even bother to put yourself in that position? If your investigations or analyses took you in a variety of directions, some experts believe that you do not have to keep track of any errors made, false leads followed, or even early thoughts that were eventually discarded. They feel that a case file should contain only information and explorations that are directly relevant to the opinions, conclusions, or recommendations you express in your expert report. They would recommend that you retain only the notes, records, information, and test results that led directly to your final conclusions. I suppose that's easier and potentially less embarrassing. I don't completely agree with that, though. Many lawyers would argue that you should retain all your notes. They would say that these notes represent an opportunity to discover the lines of thinking that eventually led to the opinions you express. I can see both points of view, but remember, I recommended in an earlier lesson that you not commit to paper any more than is necessary. Nevertheless, you should still retain any work that you did perform and felt the need to document at the time, even if you later conclude that the results were either irrelevant or unimportant. You should definitely prepare to explain why you discounted some work or analyses and why they did not affect your eventual opinions. Then, when testifying, you can simply reiterate your final opinions, discount the relevance or value of the data that you did discount, and emphasize the data that you carefully and methodically collected and used. You may have some questions now about updating your expert report. Ideally, you should write your expert report after discovery is complete. You should have access by then to all the relevant facts in the case, and you should have performed the investigations, tests, and analyses that you believed necessary. Your expert report covers those opinions and the bases for them. Sometimes the process is not that straightforward, and you learn new information late in the case. Sometimes the other side only reluctantly reveals new information very late in the case. You will need to look at any new information that affects any of the opinions you put forth in your expert report. If any of them changes because of the newly introduced evidence in the case, you will probably need to write a supplemental report that explains the effects and any possible changes to your earlier opinions, and further explains how the new evidence might or did lead to a new and/or changed opinion.